Hello everyone, my name is Crystal and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, then hit that subscribe button because we're friends, we just haven't met yet.
You boys ever met a real country girl? I'm talking true blue, out in the woods, down home, country. She's a hot little number in her pickup truck. Daddy sweet money done jacked it up. She's a party all-nighter from South Carolina, a bad mamma jamma from down in Alabama. She's a raging Cajun lunatic from Brunswick, juicy Georgia peach with a thick southern drawl, sexy swinging walk. Brother, she's all country. From her cowboy boots to her down home roots, she's country. From the song she plays to the prayer she prays, that's the way she was born and raised. She ain't afraid to stay country. Brother, she's country. Hill raising sugar when the sun goes down. Mama taught her how to rip up the town. Honey dripping honey from the holler in Kentucky, get you flipping kinda trippy like a Mississippi hippie. She's a Kansas princess, crazy mother trucker, undercover lover, thick southern drawl, sexy swinging walk. Brother, she's all country. From her cowboy boots to her down home roots, she's country. From the song she plays to the prayer she prays, that's the way she was born and raised. She ain't afraid to stay country. Nothing but country. Big southern drawl, sexy swinging ball. Oh, show 'em how a country girl does it one time now. Country. She's all about the country. From the backwoods, she's a homegrown, down to the bone, she's country.
Okay, now we're going to be finishing we're going to start chapter 8 of From Here to the Great Unknown. The title of the chapter is The Bus from Nashville to LA. If you don't have something to keep you focused or some kind of purpose, it's hard out there. Life is not easy. Who doesn't want to be high? Drugs or drinking make you feel great. You have to have something bigger than that feeling of being high, bigger than that happiness, bigger than that emptiness. If you don't, you're in trouble. Before I became addicted, I was focused. I wanted to know what the frig I was doing here. I wanted to know about life. I wanted to know about people. For a long time, I didn't want to frig around. I needed answers, whatever they were. That had to be my focus. But as soon as that was gone, I was off the rails. When I had my twins, and I was in the hospital, they gave me Norco. That's when I felt the first, oh my God, high from painkiller. I was 40. I don't really know what I was doing, to be honest. I was getting isolated, slowly started to get rid of everyone and everything in my life, all the pillars that I had set up, all the people and the friends and the relationships I had started to, one by one, dislodge and dismantle each and every one of those. Now it's Raleigh. And y'all may hear my dog walking around. Sorry. My mother had started by taking opiates for pain after her C-section, and then she progressed to taking them to sleep. She had turned 40 in February of 2008. My sisters were born in October that same year. I would turn 20 the following May. After her brief stint with drugs as a teenager, she had never touched them again. She drank, but like she said, as an adult, she wouldn't even take Advil or Tylenol. Throughout my life, she would often say, if I tried drugs, it would be over for me. I see now that was such a strong hint to an addiction issue she had an intuition about. I think it was subconscious, but it stalked her. She had been holding it back with Scientology, with raising children, with marriages, with spirituality. But it was there, like a shadow, the whole time. She'd say my dad was 42 when he died. I'm 39. We never could have imagined it would be something that would come for her so viciously, so late in life. Shortly after my sisters were born, to try to gain some agency, my mom moved with them and Michael Lockwood to England. Initially, they lived briefly in the southwest London, Richmond, and some days she would take my sisters in their stroller to a little Cap restaurant on the Thame. My mom loved the quiet life, and it's not spelled like quiet, so it's quaint. Anyways, life she was creating for herself. Ben and I felt a little abandoned because her move to England meant that for the first time we didn't all live together in the same house. She got us a house in Calabasas, but we pretty much stayed in England with her most of the time. My mom had originally thought about living in Ireland. We would go to Ireland a lot when we were younger. My mom was friends with the Australian-Irish artist Gottfried, and we'd stay at his castle, Castle Gertine de la Pror, a few miles east from Clormel. We'd all go to the local pubs and dance to the music, and then when closing time came, we'd head back to Gertine and run around the castle grounds, or climb a spiral tower to the top and lay under the stars. Me drunk at 17 until the sun peered through the chandeliers. So my mom had really wanted to move to Ireland, but every property she found, she claimed was haunted. She had a very practical and pragmatic connection to ghosts, past lives, spirits. One day, a realtor took us to a very old house somewhere outside of Cork. She led us down a hallway with pink floral wallpaper and a very low ceiling. Before we even reached the living room, my mom said, "It's haunted," turned around, and walked right out. She soon settled on England instead. In the beginning, England, like Hidden Hills before it, was really magical, the first couple of years especially. It seemed to me that she thought this was her last shot at stability. Once more, having children, living in a huge country house in the middle of nowhere. Again, she was trying to recreate what she had felt with my father, a simple life without all the people, just her husband and her children. I kind of find it hard to think that anything about Elvis Presley's life was simple, but to Lisa, that was a simple time for her. After Richmond in 2010, she bought a 15th century property in Rothfield and 30 miles northeast of Bridgeton on the south coast. The house had 50 acres and gorgeous lake, sheep, horses, even an orangery. It was truly beautiful, stunning. It was also haunted, but only in one room. Finley took my mother and Michael, that told my mother and Michael she often saw a man in her bedroom. Eventually, my mother and Michael got more details. Apparently, the great-grandmother of a resident of the house had lived and died in the house. And the loud bangs that they had regularly heard around midnight were probably to do with the great-grandfather who had shot himself in the barn many years earlier, the same barn that was now their living room. My mom got very into gardening in England. She would plant radishes, potatoes, and carrots in the garden with my sisters. It was also the first time she cooked. She still had a chef, but she had more time on her hands, so she spent some of it in the kitchen. She would take tea by the fire all day. She would take tea by the fire all day, too. She loved making and stoking fires. She would just sit there and intently watch the flames, trying to predict them. No one could make a fire blaze like my mother. She was a fire witch. Every weekend, Ben and I would take the train up to London to meet up with our friends. At Christmas time, we'd head to Harold's in Knightsbridge or to the Beaumark in Southwark. Do our Christmas shopping, then head back to our local pub in Crowborough. I can't pronounce these towns. Y'all, bear with me. Just a little country girl here. A few miles from the house to hang out with the locals and sing and dance till the wee hours of the morning. By this time, my mom had become close friends with the owner of the pub, so we could skirt the 11 p.m. closing bell and stay all night. Ben was 18, and sometimes he'd work behind the bar. This was my mom's ideal of living a small life. She still had a house manager, one security guard, one driver, a chef, and 2 nannies for the girls, which sounds like a lot, but was a skeleton crew compared to what had been going on in California. Eventually, she'd cremate her own pub at the house. Create her own pub at the house, where a bunch of the locals, including some new friends like guitarist Jeff Beck, his wife Sandra, and Sarah Ferguson, could hang out. Sarah and my mom had a real loyalty together Sarah and my mom had a real loyalty toward each other. They'd both been through similar onslaughts in their press and in life, torn apart and shamed simply for being women who were unapologetically themselves. And my mom had huge Christmas parties too. Mostly, though, she liked going to the chip shop and having a roast on Sundays and gardening with my sisters. Simply, she had done what she set out to do. She had created a very sweet little life in the countryside. So the first couple of years were truly magical. She had no idea, though, that her pill use was very slowly increasing. One night, we all went up to London to hang out at Keough House. Typically, when my mother and I got into fights, they would resolve themselves fairly quickly. She could be rational, could take responsibility, and be empathetic. That night at Soho House, though, was the first time I realized something was wrong. It began as a small argument about me wanting to go to Ireland before Christmas, but quickly I felt a viciousness from her I had never felt before. She wouldn't resolve the argument, and backward and forth felt very irrational. "You didn't tell me that you were going to Ireland this close to Christmas," she said. Yes, I did. I did tell you, I said. You just don't remember. She ignored that. So you're going to leave me here and take your brother to Ireland? That's just so not right. So not okay to do that. I just told you. I told you weeks ago we were going to Ireland. I'm so confused right now. She became relentless. She wouldn't let it go. There was a new meanness in her where before we would have resolved it quickly. I was so confused and angry at the exchange that I stormed out of the club. It had made me feel crazy. On my way out, I found my brother having a cigarette. Mom is being so weird, I said. What do you mean? He said. Like she's getting, like she's just getting mad that we're going to Ireland when we already told her weeks ago. She won't let it go. I was dressed in a fancy gown and I had nowhere to go. It was 2 a.m. As I walked away, a rickshaw passed me and I got in. I guess that's a cab. The rickshaw was all decked out in Christmas lights, and the guy was blasting Angels by Robbie Williams so loud I couldn't hear myself think. There I was, dressed in a floor-length gown and flax fur coat, and even in my fury I couldn't help but see the absurdity in the situation and laugh at myself. I texted my mom a video of me riding through Oxford Circus as the song blasts. My mother sent a text back. Huh. After fights, we wouldn't typically have a conversation to resolve the fight. Eventually, one person would just break the silence and it was back to business as usual. This was that text. I headed back to Soho House, but things were changing, and not just with my mom. After a couple of years of living in England, we all went to Hawaii on vacation, and that's when my mom admitted to me that yes, she was addicted to opiates, but that she was planning on going to rehab in Mexico. Me and my brother and sisters went to Mexico with her. Halfway through, though, she made an excuse to cut it short. I'm going to have to go back. The girls are starting school after Easter, she said. What do you mean? I said. Surely you knew this was landing on those dates. Yeah, but they just started. They have all these new friends. They have their routine. I'm not going to pull them out of that. I think everyone would agree that you staying here is more important than my sister's missing a week of school, I said, but she was adamant. She always did what she wanted to do. My brother and I were angry, but we couldn't change her mind. Back in England, there was a tacit awareness between me and my brother and Michael that maybe my mother didn't want to get sober. She was always extremely honest, but I think she felt that being honest was the virtue rather than changing of her behavior. Since she had admitted it to us, the honesty seemed to give her the license to continue with her addiction. Now that we knew, my brother and I noticed things, like she would fall asleep too early when we watched movies together. Molly or Coke, and he had wanted me... Wait, just a second. I think I skipped a page. I did. One morning, I was sitting in the kitchen drinking tea, and my mom came by. She slightly bumped into the wall as she passed. I felt a sense of dread, because I knew for her telling me for years and years that if she ever did heroin, it would kill her. She would say I would never just dabble. If I did it, it would take me out. Eventually, she realized that moving to England hadn't been such a good idea. She had distanced herself from all of her friends, and the drug use had increased along with the loneliness and isolation. Or she needed to be alone to take the drugs, or both. Her community was gone. She was in the English countryside and 2 babies and no friends. She decided that isolation was the problem. She hated LA and wanted to be closer to Graceland. So she decided she was going to move to Nashville to be more social and make a new record. I felt better. This felt like she had a plan. Danny was going to try to sell the house in England, and she was going to get off the pills and start over in Nashville. While she looked for Nashville homes, she rented a house in LA on a golf course with a beautiful backyard, a pool, and a movie room where my brother and I would watch Game of Thrones. One night I went downstairs to get a drink, and I noticed that Michael was taking my sisters out of the house to Chuck E. Cheese. It was strange that my mom wasn't going with them. I went upstairs to find her and headed into her room. I realized that she was hiding in her bathroom. "Don't come in," she said. I ignored her. When I entered, I found her crying in her bathtub. She had a black eye and a bloody nose. She'd fallen while high. She was sobbing and clearly felt ashamed. She told Michael to take my sisters out of that and they wouldn't see her face. Take my sisters out so that they wouldn't see her face. She knew this had all gone too far. She went back to rehab the following week. After that stint, she then flew to Nashville. My mother was slowly falling apart. My brother was too. We were all drinking a lot, but even when he drank, my brother remained jovial, fun. He was somebody who never wanted the night to end, the last person awake. But there was one night at a club when I was around 22 and Ben started pushing me to leave. It didn't feel right. He got me in a taxi and sent me back to the hotel where we were staying for the weekend. Only later did I realize he'd been doing drugs, probably Molly or Coke, and he had wanted me out of there so he could do whatever he wanted without me finding out. This became a theme in my family. They would do things behind my back. I was kind of the narc. My mom always said I was too harsh on Ben and too harsh on her. But I think it was simply that I was the only one who wasn't an addict, so I was the downer. But I was getting concerned about Ben. One night around that time, he was drinking at a pub, came back late, and fell off of his bed and chipped his front tooth. He cried in my mom's arms that night at the bottom of the stairs. Still, he never really drank during the day. He was a binge drinker, going hard for a couple of weeks and then stopping for a long stretch. He got a lot of time with him sober. We got a lot of time with him sober. I would worry about him in the moment, but then the following week or month, he'd be fine, better than fine, drinking green teas and working out. It didn't affect my relationship with him, but my mom's addiction meant she was simply not there emotionally a lot of the time. When I started talking to a therapist, it was really nice to hear somebody talk back and say, "Hey, you're not frigged up," or, and this is Lisa, by the way, you need to stop shooting yourself in the foot. I also attended group therapy, and initially I really resented it. But eventually I started getting close to people. I realized that they were all as frigged up as me. I didn't love AA. You talk about drugs and alcohol all the time, and it drives me friggin' crazy. I agree that I am powerless over it, and I believe that I could stop everything. But the pills were designed to addict you from within. Even if you only take them for 2 or 3 weeks straight, you're going to have some kind of blowback. Your body's going to withdraw. But I don't think it's just physical. I believe that a body is just a body, and the spirit is ultimately inside of that physical shell. And I don't think chemicals have anything to do with the spirit. They make the physical addiction to the body. But the root of the addiction comes from being really unhappy. That's a spiritual problem. After I left Scientology, I started upping the pills. I thought, oh my God, I've lost my religion, and it's been my only pavement to walk on. My replacement family. Everything was gone. All my friends, everything. I knew it was over. and I was devastated. I used the drugs as a coping mechanism. Now, it's back to Riley. 2 weeks into her new life in Nashville, my mother was back on opiates. The addiction got worse. She was drinking more, taking more opiates. At one point, she found an article that said cocaine can help people get off opiates. So she began doing cocaine to get off the opiates, and then opiates to get off the cocaine. Her addiction would continue through all of the stints in rehab on the basis that she was always in severe or life-threatening withdrawals that no doctor could understand. She felt all of the doctors were too harsh. They wouldn't give her enough of what she needed. So she was doing it herself. Now back to Lisa. It escalated to 80 pills a day. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness. It took more and more to get high. And I honestly don't know when your body decides it can't deal with it anymore. But it does decide that at some point. I believe that we're all born innocent, and that everyone's nature is innately good, but they get frigged by their surroundings. I believe that my brain is different, that I am an addict. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had all those years in between being a stupid teenager to suddenly getting a drug habit at 40. For a couple of years, it was recreational, and then it wasn't. It was an absolute matter of addiction, withdrawal in the big leagues. If I had fully run out of drugs, the severity of the withdrawal would have left me either in the hospital or dead. My blood pressure would shoot up so high. I just wanted to check out. It was too painful to be sober. My whole life had blown up. It felt like one thing after another, and I could not take any more beatings. Okay, and now it's Riley's point of view. My mom came up with all kinds of reasons why she didn't want to get off the drugs. But I think one of the most permanent reasons was her feelings of shame about becoming an addict with 2 young children. Her parenting standards were so high that I don't think she could have ever truly get sober knowing what she had put my sisters through. The one thing that she had always really prided herself on was that she was a great mother. She said, "My music wasn't that successful. I didn't finish high school. I'm not beautiful. I'm not good enough, but I'm a great mother." When she started to feel like she wasn't even that, she couldn't handle it. So she doubled down. When she lived in Nashville in the depths of her addiction, my mom would often drive the 200 miles southwest to Graceland to sleep in her dad's bed. It seemed like the only place she found any comfort. Often she would take me and Ben and my sisters upstairs to his room, and we would all sleep in her dad's bed while there were tours going on downstairs. I wish this was a magical time in a magical family place. But the truth of it was she was in the house, desperate to feel protected, desperate to connect with her father. She would lie in his bed, lie on his floor, anything to feel some comfort. It was the feeling of going to church when all is lost and the saying, "Please, Jesus, help me." And every time she went, she'd point out an empty plot of grass where she would eventually be laid to rest, next to her father in the meditation gardens. When I was back in LA, I got a call from my mother. "There's something wrong with me, physically," she said. "You need to come to LA, I said. "We need to get you to the hospital." That began a long text chain between me and my brother in LA and my mom in Nashville, excerpts of which I offer here. "Mom, please come get me out of here ASAP. We can find a trailer or something. We can get to California. I'm not kidding. I need you both. I don't have the strength to leave. I'm not well in any way. My legs and body are swollen. I spit up blood. My ankles are twisted. My hips are bleeding. My lips are bleeding. I throw up everything but yogurt. My feet are so swollen. I'm scared. Me. You need to go to the doctor now. You need to get checked out and vitamins. Go to the doctor now. This is not okay. Ben. She doesn't want to go to the doc. There's a doc that will go to the house. That's the best move right now. Me. My mom's assistant. Christy and Lockwood are both saying you won't go to the doctor. You need to go to the doctor. Mom, not a doctor here. Tennessee has strong laws. They'll take away my babies. Me. For drugs? Who cares? You're going to die, Mom. You just need a doctor to check your vitals. Ben. I don't care if the devil himself came to earth and said he was a doctor as long as he's a doctor. Mom. I have my doctor in L.A. I want to see. Me. Can I please get you an RV to drive you to L.A. tomorrow? Ben. Get an RV and come here. Mom. Or me. Mom, I'm booking an RV in Tennessee tomorrow. Ben will fly to Nashville and go with you and the babies. Ben. Answer, Mom. Ben. Mom, answer my friggin' phone call. I'm calling you 21 times. You don't want to talk to me, that's fine, but I have a plan. Me. Mom, Ben has a good plan. You'll take an RV with the babies. Mom. Where do we stay? Me. I'll find you somewhere. Ben. Call me. 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 Now it's back to Lisa. I had done a bunch of blow and a shot of tequila and a bunch of pills. All that was mixed with stress. I was really unhappy and my body was not doing well. Riley and Ben wanted me to go to a doctor. Everyone wanted to get me to the doctor, but I wouldn't go to the one in Nashville. So Riley sent Ben to get me because my assistant, Christy, had told her that a couple of times she thought I had gone, that I had looked dead on the bed. Ben showed up, and he and the girls and I took a tour bus all the way from Nashville to L.A. We drove because I wanted to do cocaine the whole time. I couldn't if I was on an airplane. I didn't think I could even get through airport security. The tour bus had 6 beds and bedroom in the back, a kitchen. When we arrived in L.A., I went straight in to see the head of Cedar Sinai. I was at 30 heartbeats per minute and lay there scared to death. My echocardiogram came back bad. I was literally losing my heart. My heart was dead, just in pieces. Now it's Riley. When she arrived in L.A. and from Nashville, Mom's head and face were twice their normal size. She went straight from the emergency room to the ICU. She was in heart failure. It was chaos, and in the midst of it, she told Michael Lockwood she was leaving him. It took about a week for her to start to recover. Once she was feeling a bit better, she was desperate to find somewhere safe, somewhere gated to live. She repeatedly asked if we could find somewhere on Mountain Gate, where we'd all lived when I was little, where we'd lost Jocko, the pug, but where we'd been so happy. My mother had changed business management at that time, and somehow all of her credit cards had been frozen. She had nothing. Everything was a mess. She went to court, ordered rehab in L.A., submitted to court-ordered P-test, the whole bit. The rehab gave her Suboxone and other drugs like Seroquel and gabapentin to wean her off the opiates, but they only served to make her even more high because whatever the normal dose was, she would somehow get 5 times that amount from the doctors. When I would go to visit her, she didn't even know who I was. I remember sitting with her while she tried to light her cigarette for 5 full minutes. Unfortunately, it was as if it was all happening in slow motion. The cigarette was never closer than a foot away from the lighter. While in rehab, my mom had decided to get bariatric surgery. Her entire life, she had been harassed for being fat. The surgery was something she'd always wanted. It was a strange time to decide to have surgery in rehab. She wasn't done with her program. I remember worrying that it was a way to stay on medication a little bit longer. I didn't feel she was ready to be sober. If you have any experience with addicts, you'll know that when I questioned her about the timing of the surgery, it turned into a massive fight. That was a dead giveaway. Then she removed me from the guest list at the hospital. In the midst of her addiction, I was a narc to her. I was Pookie, her regular name for me. I was seldom, if ever, Riley, not a pirate. I often found myself calling out her attempts to best the system. I would contact the doctors behind her back and tell them that they were overprescribing. But she was Lisa Marie Presley, and so she almost always prevailed and was furious that I tried to intervene. Bending doctors, anyone to her will, was a celebrity phenomenon that she was very aware of. She often told me that the issue with her father and with Michael Jackson was that everyone around them always just said yes. But of course, she didn't see that issue the same way when she was doing it herself. In the throes of her addiction, if you wanted to stop her, you were out. To me, she would say, "You don't understand. You're not an addict." Soon she was out of rehab, but incredibly depressed. She'd been through another separation, and she felt like she had nothing to live for, nothing to look forward to. She was on a bunch of medications that left her numb. All she could really do was sit on the couch and watch TV. For her to be able to see my sisters, there had to be a court-certified monitor present. I was that monitor. So for my sisters to move back in with her, my mom had to live with me. And as my brother lived with her, I got my brother as a bonus. So my mom, my sisters, and my brother moved into my 2,000 square foot house in the valley. Then my dad moved in too. It seemed like it could have been good to have everyone together, but it felt like the end of things. We'd had this amazing, colorful, beautiful, abundant, fun, joyful life, but in that house it took a turn and got unbearably dark for all of us. Japan was my brother's favorite country. When Ben and I on the train to Keough one day, he said to me, half jokingly, kind of coyly, "It's so hard because when I do something new, I get really good at it so fast that it becomes uninspiring." Nothing kept his interest long because when he learned to do something, he actually would be good at it. He was one of those people who could, annoyingly, be great at everything, but he hadn't found the one thing that really grabbed him. He'd wanted to play guitar for a living. He'd taken business courses. He trained to be a sushi chef. Even got a chef's knife tattooed on one arm. But nothing ever stuck. He was really smart. Way more academic than I was. In his mind, in his mid-20s, he began to feel pressure to make a choice. I was always trying to help him figure out what to do with his life. "You could move to Hawaii and fish," I'd say, another passion of his. We'd send each other links to houses on Redfin that he might one day buy. His dream was to live a simple life somewhere. Hawaii or Japan were his top choices. But when the conversation would progress, he'd always hid his reality. "I can't leave Mom." He, like the rest of us siblings, was privy to the tumultuously deep sadness and loneliness of her. How she had ended up pushing away virtually everyone and everything she loved, and was very much alone. and he'd given himself the responsibility of never leaving her side. In May 2018, I went to Tokyo to film a movie for Netflix called Earthquake Bird, and Ben came with me. Initially, we stayed in the Park Hyatt, the hotel that features the Lost in Translation. I'm not much of a drinker, but on my 29th birthday, I got way too drunk. I cannot handle my alcohol and threw up all over the side of the hotel. I could hear my parents' voice in my head telling me what a lightweight I was. I probably only had 3 drinks. In a family of pirates, that's not necessarily a bad thing to be. My family took pride in their privacy, and they really lived up to it. But as my mother once said, when I claimed I was hardcore, oh Pookie, you are so not hardcore. The next week, we found an apartment to live in. Ben and I had the most beautiful time in Japan that month. We would wake up every day and head to the sauna and the steam room, when we'd take a walk to get smoothies and just keep wandering. I had some yellow Nikes I wore around the city that he was obsessed with. He never wanted anything I had other than those shoes. I didn't have too much to do in the movie, so there was time. I had an assistant, and he and Ben became best friends. When I did have to work, the two of them would run around the city together. Tokyo is a beautiful place for cosmetics, so we went to cosmetic class. I can't pronounce it. Okay, classes. The 3 of us, we made so many pots and bowls. You know what I'm trying to say here. I can't pronounce it. Bowls and cups. Ben was a foodie. He'd go all out, all these incredible restaurants, and he would eat everything and anything. There were dishes that I could not eat. Sea urchin, for example. But with the chef right there, I didn't want to be rude. So I had to wait for the chef to look away and then slip whatever it was I couldn't stomach to Ben. Despite being so into the best foods, one of his favorite things to eat was rice balls from 7-Eleven. In fairness, the food at 7-Eleven in Japan is very good. We'd take the rice balls to Sushi Beach, a surfer beach about an hour south of the city. We'd climb the mountain to the shrine, me in my bright yellow Nike sneakers, banana shoes as being called them, and eat the rice balls. Ben would give me a hard time about the shoes every day. Did you get my banana shoes yet? He'd ask repeatedly. I promised over and over that I'd get him a pair. For a while, Ben got heavily into making jewelry. A few weeks after I started dating the man who would become my husband, Ben Smith Patterson, we were all in Ireland together. Ben told Ben, my mom later christened the two Ben and Big Ben, to differentiate that it was obvious that he was going to propose to me. We were children, but we were clearly going to be together, and that he'd make a ring. A few weeks later, Big Ben was in Australia visiting his mom. She mentioned that he had some diamonds that she'd taken out of her great-grandmother's ring. She'd intended to repurpose them into something for herself, but she gave him one of them. Back in the States, Ben found a vintage ring with no setting and set the diamond for Big Ben. Big Ben then attached the ring to our dog and told me to call him over. And that's how technically, the dog proposed. Back in LA, while trying to look after our mother, Ben, Ben's own addiction to alcohol was growing. And as it grew, so did his depression. Through the though he suffered from anxiety, sober or not, when he wasn't drinking, he was often fine. His depression didn't seem dangerous. He would sometimes go on a bender, and he would sometimes do drugs, take Molly for a week, and feel the come down. But after a few days away from it, he was back to normal. My mom was such a powerful person that whatever she was doing really affected all of us. Our lives were dictated by the tone she was setting, and that tone became very heavy and hopeless. Our mom, the queen, the fiercest of the family leaders, had fallen down. I had mistakenly thought she was so strong-minded that nothing could ever truly hobble her. But of course it could. Enough pain can hobble anyone. She'd been addicted to drugs for the better part of a decade, and the drugs created a sense of hopelessness and permitted everything. She stopped wanting to do anything. She felt like her life was over. She'd say, I have nothing. I have no husband. I have no friends. I have no life. She was bottoming out. Ben was a mama's boy, through and through, and he couldn't handle his mama being in pain. They were so close, like Elvis and Gladys, one inextricably tied to the rise and fall of the other, and seeing each other in pain was impossibly hard for them. It wrecked him. What had once felt like a perfect childhood to us gave way to what felt like a nightmare to him. Like many in our family, substance were being found relief, and his alcohol addiction got worse. Sometimes I'd think, well, he doesn't seem like he's drinking that much more than other friends of mine. In fact, from that standpoint, he was not even the one I was most concerned about. We were still very tight, but he didn't tell me how bad he was really feeling. One day he told my mom that he didn't think that he was mentally okay. But she didn't tell me that, and you wouldn't have known unless he told you. We were all very close, forever cuddling, curled up in the bed together, so when it got dark, how could it not affect all of us? All our lives, my mom had been leading the way, and none of us could get used to her not having her usual strength. The drugs she stayed on after rehab were dimming her light. The following year, my mom was able to move into her own house in Calabasas, and my brother and sister moved in with her. I swear that house was haunted. It felt cursed, or maybe it was how powerful my mother's mood had become. She wouldn't go a few days without seeing me, but I didn't want to be there. The house felt so heavy. My brother could feel it. Anyone who went there could feel it. Ben finally decided he was drinking too much, so my mom sent him to rehab. But on his return, he was still stuck in that terrible house, watching his mother struggle. She was not truly sober. Either she wasn't taking narcotics, but she was certainly getting high on the post-rehab cocktail. We would fight about it all the time, and she would get vicious, protecting her addiction. Otherwise, she would just sleep on the couch all day. It was incredibly hard for my brother to watch. Then she had a seizure. My brother and her assistant were home with her at the time. Ben stayed by her side until the paramedics arrived. I showed up that night to take care of my sisters. My mom was in the hospital. Ben was sitting on the couch in silence. Are you okay? I asked. Yep, he said, as though he was completely checked out. I had my attention on the twins. They had just seen the paramedics wheel their mother out and were very upset, so I wasn't able to check on my brother. After the seizure, my mom realized she couldn't do this anymore. Though she remained on mood stabilizers, she did manage to truly sober up. One day she said to me, "That's enough. I really need to change my life." She had been very chastened by the seizure. In fact, she had a deep phobia about them. One time in a mall in Florida, when I was around 7 years old, a man was having a violent seizure on the floor. My mother couldn't shake the image of it for months and eventually had to get therapy about it. When she told me that she'd had enough, I remember thinking, finally, her addiction was going to be gone. I really felt it was. But I noticed that my brother's disposition changed after the seizure. He seemed quieter and was often alone in his room. I remember feeling like I wanted to check on him more than usual, because I knew that seeing his mother have a seizure would have been unbearable for him. That haunted house in Calabasas had developed a minor mold problem, so my mom, Ben, and my sisters were staying at the Beverly Hills Hotel while the problem was remedied. My mom was badly allergic to mold. During their stay, Ben went back to the house one night to throw a birthday party for his girlfriend. My mom and Ben were texting backwards and forth that night. She had picked up something about his mindset, something that worried her. "Are you coming back tomorrow? Come home," she wrote. At the house, the party went into the small hours. Everyone was happily hanging out downstairs. Ben went upstairs around 3:30 a.m. "Come home," she wrote. He said he was just going to get a beer. And the next chapter is chapter 8. There's only 9 chapters to this. So you probably will see me in these same clothes because I'm recording on the same day to try to finish this book for you all. But just like last time, leave a comment down below. Let me know you watched it so you can be put in the drawing to win the book. In this next chapter, it's going to get into the final moments of Ben, what that did to Lisa, and ultimately the aftermath of it all. As always, remember, it takes 0 effort to be a good human being.